I believe that we are at the beginning of a massive, innovative change, and it will impact our futures very significantly, in my opinion, in a very positive way. I believe that decentralization, which is the core of this technology, will enable everyone to get equal opportunities.
Hello, stereotype breakers, and welcome to yet another episode of the Meaningful Conversations podcast. Today, I'm interviewing my friend Mona, and I'm so excited to share her story with you. But as you can see, the setup is slightly different. Mona is actually visiting me in Denver, so we're going to be chatting here. First, let me tell you more about Mona and her experience, and then we'll jump into the conversation. Mona is a venture capital investor focused on blockchain technology. She is an experienced business development professional with a demonstrated history of working in both corporate and startup environments, in particular Fintech, Edtech, and Foodtech, having graduated with an MBA from INSEAD. Skilled in go to market strategy, strategic management, sales, marketing strategy, fundraising, business building, and venture capital. She's also an amazing friend, and I've known her for over 11 years now, and someone that I really look up to when it comes to my professional growth. So I'm super, super excited to share her story with you. Mona, I'm so excited to talk to you about your career journey. Mona and I have been friends for so long, and I have watched her grow and develop and change career paths throughout, oh my God, 11 or 12 years now.
Yeah.
It's been a very, very long journey. And I'm super excited to share her story with you because it has been fantastic. And Mona is super intentional about the way she changes her career. So very excited to have you here. Well, first of all, so excited to see you, and very excited to have you here on my channel. And I'm very excited to ask you some questions.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
So let's jump straight into it. Catch us up on your career progression. What roles have you had, and what industries have you worked in by now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I went to university with Masha in Scotland. And afterwards, I joined a consulting company, PwC Consulting, and it became strategy and so the strategic aspect of the consulting branch. And I did that for 4 years. And I was mainly part of the TMT team, which is telecoms, media, and technology, but also did pharma work and worked with the National Health Service in the UK and a variety of different industries. And I have to say, I really, really enjoyed consulting.
Mm-hmm.
I like the project based work. I like the intellectual challenge. I like working with colleagues that are very educated and very ambitious. And I really did like that drive at the beginning of my career to kind of always be a little bit outside of my comfort zone. And that, at least for my personality, it helps me really to grow. So that was exciting. And I genuinely always thought I'd be a career consultant.
Mm-hmm.
I'll become partner hopefully one day. And that was the super goal to get there. But then I was actually approached on LinkedIn, which I'm sure all of us have at some point, or many of us might have had people approach us on LinkedIn at some point. And usually I'd ignore the requests from recruiters or companies because I was quite happy with my consulting job. But then I ended up saying, okay, one of the approaches was so interesting, which was the founders of a New Zealand based university admissions consultancy app contacted me and said, hey, we would like you to start the company on the other side of the world. And the company was called Crimson Education. And they said, hey, we want someone to start it in Germany. At the time, I was still in the UK, never had planned to go back to Germany. But long story short, the opportunity was just so great. It was really completely different to what I imagined, but it was almost like a real life MBA. It felt like it was a founding experience, a company building entrepreneurial experience without all the risk,
Mm-hmm.
because somebody had already come up with the idea and had already kind of proven the concept and that it works. So I did that. I left everything behind in the UK, which I didn't want to initially. I went back to Germany, founded Crimson Education Germany, and to this day still run it along the side, but had done that full time for 2 years. And now it's been 4 years, actually, over 4 years that Crimson Germany was born. And it has developed over time. We had, ups and downs, but overall it's been very interesting. Helped me really to become more confident in sales and marketing, building a company, hiring people. And then I ended up going to an MBA, actually an actual MBA at INSEAD University, because that had always been a dream of mine. And I did really learn through friends about the venture capital industry. I thought that would be perfect mixture between strategy consulting, entrepreneurial experience, and then doing the MBA to learn about the financial services aspects, the theoretic aspects that I did not have before. Yeah, and I'm blabbering on, but in the end I did an MBA, then actually went into blockchain and worked for a neobank with a crypto exchange in Berlin. And now I am finally at that goal of being a venture capital investor specifically for the blockchain industry.
I love that. I know we've been talking, obviously behind the scenes, for a while, and I remember how you were, like you were intentional about getting into the VC world, and we'll get to that. But I'm very curious about that mindset shift. I remember when we both lived in London. You were working at PwC and then Strategy and I was working at Google. We would have our, weekly, bi-weekly catch-ups. We'd have a glass of wine and you would tell me about your ambitions, and it sounded like you wanted to stay in consulting, like you just said. And I know that you've always wanted to do an MBA. So how did you see yourself at all time, like, throughout your career, growing within that space, and the MBA helped facilitating, I guess, with growth within that? um, and talk us through, the mindset change that led to all of the other opportunities that happened.
When I was comparing like my work at the consulting firm and then my work at Crimson Education, I started to realize that there were certain aspects of both career paths that I loved and others that I did not. And so I think the journey began to try to find a career that combined the things I love together in one career. And in my case, that was kind of project based work, constantly working with different challenges and different people, and looking at innovation and thinking about how to get to the next step or the next, movement that will change the world or the trajectory of the company or whatever it may be, in a way of describing it, I would say, versus the entrepreneurial part, which I was missing in the consulting firm because we were working with very established, multinational corporates. And so I really enjoyed the mini universe that I was allowed to build as being part of the, country manager or managing director for the German entity for Crimson. That's how I kind of got into, with a bit of research, talking to my friends, people like you and others, who have had careers in a variety of different aspects, to realize, oh, there's something called a venture capitalist. And that venture capitalist combines the project-based work, constantly talking to different founders, looking at new innovations, making decisions, project-based work, working with portfolio companies that are all kind of looking at a different angle and that have different challenges. So you can support them there. But then also being in the entrepreneurial space, being at the beginning of a company's journey and helping that company grow and supporting them with money, but also with expertise and maybe just an open ear sometimes as well. So that's how I got to this career change of venture capital. And then the MBA really was a way for me, after doing a bit of research, how do people get into VC? Because it is a very difficult industry to get into. And I really, really noticed that myself when I try to get into it. And I thought the MBA would give me the theoretical knowledge as well, because I really didn't have a lot of financial services knowledge. I didn't go into banking or the likes, right? Even in consulting, I was not really working with banks.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought the MBA I can really focus my studies on all of the financial services modules that were offered and really gain the theoretical knowledge in that space, the contacts, of course, as well in that space. And therefore, I used the MBA as a catalyst
Mm-hmm.
then to try to get into this career that I had figured out for myself that that's what I wanted to do.
I love how you took that the big company, big clients experience, project based work, and small company experience, and you kind of put the puzzles all together, and it fit. You realize that at least this is like the next interesting thing, and who knows, maybe you're in this for the rest of your life, or maybe at some point you'll have another pivotal point where you'll be like, this is interesting, this
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm going to do. But I love how you noticed that it had aspects of the interesting aspects of
Mm-hmm.
both, and you kind of put it together, and you had the transferable skills that you could apply there. However, like you've mentioned, it's a very difficult field to get into. So I'm super curious, because I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this, they have a field that they want to get into, but they have no background in.
Mm-hmm.
They have no experience, they have no connections, they don't really like, they're outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do? How did you plan it out? How did you intentionally pick and choose jobs, people, events, all of those things
Mm-hmm.
to put yourself, to basically create a resume,
Yeah.
to give yourself a platform to get into that field?
I'll give you a very honest answer. And the answer is it wasn't all fun and games. It wasn't always just, oh, I had this great idea and then I did an MBA and then I got into the career of my dreams. Wasn't like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It a lot of bigger hurdles were needed to be jumped in order to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up saying, okay, I wanted to do this right after the MBA. I did this. I applied for many, many roles. We were also at the height of the pandemic at the time in Europe. I was applying to roles in London. I'm a German citizen. I didn't have a visa after the Brexit for the UK. So it was all not that easy. And, VC is there's only a few roles here and there. They don't do massive intakes of you know, people into the industry. So it was basically, I got 50 plus rejections. And it was really hard. And I was like, okay, so this grand plan is not really working out. And a lot of the time, the rejection reason I was given or was told was that it's because I don't have banking
Mm-hmm.
background. I don't have a investing background. I don't have that knowledge. And they wanted that knowledge, which I totally understand. And I was also often told, oh, you don't have real founder experience because Crimson was given to you as a product that was finished. You
Mm-hmm.
just had to sell it rather than build it, which at the time I was a bit upset about that feedback, but I think in retrospect, it's true. So what did I do? I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to change that and I'm going to take the feedback. I wouldn't say too hard because sometimes I think you also have to be very, you have to decide what feedback is acceptable and what isn't. But in general, when you hear certain things several times I thought, okay, there must be some truth behind this. So I founded a little company called Timely. It's a food tech startup, essentially like a little marketplace for local produce that can be discounted and sold slash bought through an app to get that real founding experience.
Mm-hmm.
Also because I like the topic and it was a little bit easier maybe than the blockchain technology for me to found relatively quickly without
Mm-hmm.
being a developer myself. And then I also said, okay, for becoming a little bit more aware of the industry in terms of financial services, I was like, okay, I'm going to pivot a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
what I did was I started to work as a chief of staff at a company called Bitwala at the time, now Nuri. It's a neobank based in Berlin, Germany,
Mhm.
and it has a crypto exchange. Because I
Mhm.
had also been reading a lot about blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, and I thought that is so interesting. I love the idea of working in that space, learning to invest in that space myself without it being, as being part of an investor for a VC, also working in that space, being part of a neobank, being part of the innovative, disruptive version of banking, and gaining that experience and that knowledge that I was told I was lacking
Mhm.
for reaching that goal of becoming a venture capital investor. So I try to gain as much experience as I could. And I started, maybe to answer your question a little bit more precisely, to network and to talk to people that are in the industry and say, hey, what is it actually that you do on a day to day?
Mhm.
What skills do you think you need to be really successful in your field? So I started kind of focusing a little bit more on the industry I'm interested in, which is in my case, the blockchain industry. And I started to go to a lot of blockchain events. I
Mhm.
started to speak to founders in the space. I started to speak to investors in the space. And I really put a little bit of skin in the game. Not a lot, because I think it's important to be risk averse, or really ease your way in, because money, is it's not something you should just play with. But I started to ease my way in, really started to invest a little bit myself, really understand the industry and try to understand where are the gaps. As I said, go to events and build a network, started writing a blog to explain it to myself, but then also explain it to others,
Mhm.
make a name for myself in the industry, did courses. So I was part of a distributed ledger technology course for female talents, um, to get contacts, to learn about the subject. And I think I just did a variety of smaller steps.
Mhm.
As just mentioned, are, I would say, the most probably prominent examples to answer and get into that field. Answer the questions I was asked that I couldn't answer before because I had gotten into the field.
I love how you took that feedback and made it into actionable steps for yourself and made it work. And it sounds like it was basically a combination of getting that experience and also personal branding and networking, because I mean that's how you become known in the industry. That's how you can create those connections that will result in a job. So for anybody who is watching or listening to this on our podcast, audio podcast, what steps, what advice would you give to anyone who is thinking about switching careers, not necessarily into venture capital,
Mm.
right? They are switching
Mhm.
careers into something that they have no background in, just like you had. What steps would you recommend for them to take?
I think first, understand what you don't like about your current job and your current industry, and understand what you do like. And then also research different jobs that you, after you've kind of determined what is important to me, what do I like, what do I not like, what other jobs and industries have that. If
Hmm.
you already know from the beginning, that's great, and then maybe you start at step 3. But I think if you don't, then I would say that would be step 2. And then step 3 would be, I think, to talk to people and really understand, are they actually doing what you think they're doing based on the research that you've done,
Hmm.
and really try to get an honest answer. What is needed to be successful in this job? What is your everyday life like? And what do you think you're going to be comfortable in doing this, right? If it's
Hmm.
very sales heavy and you don't really, really, really don't like sales, then maybe that's not the right job for you. I mean, it's not rocket science, but even with venture capital, a lot of the things that I do is deal sourcing, which means I have to be at conferences, I have to talk to people. I also have to sell the fund so that, interesting startups want to get money and my input. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of a sales job in a certain way. And a lot of people, I think, don't realize that. So this is just an example, but I think a lot of the time, maybe becoming a developer, that's often somewhat more lonely maybe than a job that is very salesy, let's say. So if
Mm-hmm.
you really, really like, to talk to people all day long in meetings, maybe then being a developer is something that is not perfect, and maybe you need to find a bridge. Kind of really understand what the job is about or what the industry is about that you're thinking of moving into. And then if you can try it, I know a lot of the time, when you're a bit older and like me had 6, 7 years of full time work experience, it's awkward to do an internship.
Mm.
But what I thought was useful, and maybe that's a little bit more applicable to others, is do a class in that, or do a course in that particular field. For example, distributed ledger technology in my case, or venture capital are also courses offered, or an MBA. Whereas where I could do a 3 months internship at a venture capital fund, where I really learned what it means actually to be in VC. So I think that's very, very helpful as well. Try it out, even if it's shadowing
Mm-hmm.
or, like I said, take a class, but something to give you a better feel for it. And then networking, trying to gain the skills. And to be honest, a little bit is also not giving up,
Mm-hmm.
believing in yourself, even if you get 50 rejections or more, keep going, understand why it's not working, work on the areas of knowledge that might be missing in your skill set, and just believe in yourself and keep going. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I think made me actually achieve this career change, is that I just didn't give up, and that I also took feedback on board, and tried to really use it to my advantage rather
Mm-hmm.
than letting it get me down.
Absolutely. And you took that feedback and you noticed patterns, which is, it was a big indicator of where your action items are from
Mm-hmm.
from what it sounds like. And another thing that I do want to mention is a concept that I've only recently heard about, returnship. Have you heard of returnship?
No, no, that's interesting.
So that's something that I'm going to create another podcast episode on. But apparently, it's like for mothers
Okay.
who have left the workforce to take care of their children, but
Yeah.
they're returning into the workforce. And it's kind of like an internship, but it's a returnship, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
is very interesting. And it's something that I want to explore more. But when you were talking about
Yeah.
internship for, for us as older
Mm-hmm.
people in their career journey, right? We're not starting our career journey. So it's like internship. Well, there's also returnship. I will dive deeper and I will actually learn what it is. So, like, subscribe and do all that thing because content is
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. But I want to talk about actually on the topic of returnship,
Mm-hmm.
and on the topic of being later through our careers. Not that we're super old, but we are in our 30s.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of questions of people who are doubting whether it's, whether they've missed the train,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're too old to change careers because they realize that their current career path does not serve them. However, they are worried that they're too old to switch, they're too old to enter any field. From your experience, and so many people in your network from all different
Mm-hmm.
walks of life and from all different ages, from your experience, do you feel like like one can be too old, or is it never too late to change careers? And what advice, what would you do differently had you done that switch later on in your career?
Answer is, I don't think you're ever too old. What I do think is important to realize, if you have built expertise and a certain leadership ability in an industry, and then switch, which is kind of what I did, right? I was running a company in Germany in the education technology space. And then I switched to becoming a venture capital investor, which I think everybody, when they hear that, realizes it's not really that clear of a connection there. And probably have to start a little bit lower, right? There will be people that may be younger than you, that are in a higher position than you are, or that have more knowledge than you do, or have better connections, or a higher standing in the company maybe than you do when you join, even though you have more life experience, more leadership experience, and more industry knowledge, but in a different field. So I think that's just something. Maybe it's a bit harsh, but maybe sometimes you have to swallow your ego a little bit and just say, I'm doing this career change for me. I want to learn and be part of this new industry. And I'm willing to, maybe, if it's a graph, go from this to a little bit down to then have your massive spike up, because all that maturity
Mm-hmm.
can often not be replicated, by others, because it comes with time. But maybe the industry knowledge needs to, gets a little dip in your career. Maybe you have to take a pay cut. Maybe you have to start a little bit lower. Not always, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
something I think to be aware of. And if you're aware of that, then I don't think it matters how old you are when you change
Mm-hmm.
careers. And I think nowadays it's becoming more and more common that people stay 1-2 years in a company, then change careers quite drastically, learn new skills. And in the program that I was in, for example, in distributed ledger technology, I think the youngest person was maybe around 20, and
Mm-hmm.
the oldest was around 70.
That's amazing.
So there is no, I don't think it's ever too late. I think you just have to be aware of the potential step back in a few different criteria and through different ways, and be happy with that,
Mm-hmm.
and realize you're doing that for yourself, and you're not doing that for, you know the status,
Yeah.
of having a title CEO or whatever.
And I guess that, to that point, then don't chase shiny things because they're
Yeah.
shiny. Chase them because, not chase them, but pursue them because they're worth your time. They're worth
Yeah.
that. They will take you to that next level of fulfillment. They will, bring in new aspects into your life that you will really enjoy. And I love how you talked about, completely switching out of the industry. However, if you're switching roles, but you can go into the industry where you do have background, it might be easier because, you already have
Mm,
that industry knowledge, right? You're just approaching it from a different perspective, and you might bring unique perspective, unique, and the whole thing here is create a personal brand that
yeah.
communicates to a potential employer that this is why you are so unique. This is what you can bring to your table. You have to the table. You have to communicate your unique value because you are so incredibly unique, especially when you are changing careers. You're bringing in new methods. You're
Hmm.
bringing in new knowledge. You're bringing in a new perspective, a
Yeah.
fresh perspective into anything.
I really like what you just said, because it makes sense, and it really resonates also with my career as an example, because I really was very passionate also about the industry of distributed ledger technology, about blockchain and crypto. And so I focused on, building a career and gaining knowledge in that space for me personally, but also, through a pivot towards a operational role in that space, to gain a network, knowledge, investment experience in my case, banking experience within a field that I'm really passionate about,
Mhm.
right? And that could be anything for you. I don't know, sustainability, e-commerce, whatever, right? Technology. And for me, it was blockchain. So that then really helped me to say, I'm a little mini expert, or becoming, or trying to become an expert in that field, and I can bring value as a venture capital investor to the firm, because I have that industry knowledge and extreme interest
Mhm.
and network. And I think that's, also a really good way to do it for yourself, because it makes you happy, and there's something that makes you super excited and passionate, but also then to bring value,
Mm-hmm.
as a more experienced professional in a completely new job and a completely new career path.
100% makes you feel more confident because you do feel like an expert.
Mm-hmm.
You're not lost in everything at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
And speaking of crypto, let's switch gears. And as the final question, I want to talk to you more about crypto and the blockchain space. Why is it a good industry to get into? Why is this the right time to get into it? And how can one get started?
Of course, this is a controversial topic to some. To me, it's a bit of a no-brainer, but I also understand that there are different opinions out there, of course. But I believe that we are at the beginning of a massive, innovative change, and it will impact our futures very significantly, in my opinion, in a very positive way. I believe that decentralization, which is the core of this technology, will enable everyone to get equal opportunities. Of course, whenever we see history and we evaluate historical events, we will see that when telecommunication was born or when the internet was born, there was always a wave of disruption that wasn't always fair and
Mm-hmm.
that brought wealth to some and took wealth from others. And it was a difficult transition. And I think we are going to see that with the blockchain technology as well. However, I think in the long run, it's going to open up the ability for everyone to participate in decision making, for everyone to have a bank opportunity, a payment opportunity, a bank account in a way. It will enable new wealth production, it will enable new entertainment. And I think that that's super, super exciting. So if you're interested in the space, I would say research, research, research. Don't go on an exchange that you saw in a Super Bowl ad and just put a lot of money and have no idea what you're doing, because there is a high risk in that
Okay.
space. But I think research, learn about it, play with small amounts of money that that's totally fine for you to lose. Maybe because you'll just not drink, coffee from a coffee shop for a week, and then you save that money, and it's just a little tiny infringement on your personal entertainment or personal consumption. Put a little bit in, learn about it, research it, engage with it. Like I said, I'm writing a blog, but there are many really good blogs out there in the space. Then there's great YouTube channels as well, and I think you can really podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to suggest some as well. But in essence, I think research, learn about it, see if it resonates with you. There's so many different ways to get involved. It can be in a community role, it can be just to read Telegram and Discord channels and just kind of see what people are saying, engaging in discussions. Or it can be investing in crypto or in ETFs or in other investment opportunities, or it can just be just following the news, or even getting a job then in the space. So I think there's so much you can do, but research, 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 research is my main advice there, and try to understand it as much as you can and as much as you'd like to, before jumping in head first and potentially losing a lot of money, which I think is the biggest problem that I do see in the industry to date, because there's just not enough education out there yet.
Absolutely. And it can be a confusing field. So do not put your life savings into that space just yet. Like Mona said,
Yeah.
just something that you can until you properly understand how it works. And again, we're not financial advisors.
No.
So please do not take financial advice from us. Um,
No.
but I will leave a link to your blog in the description. So for anyone who is interested in reading Mona's blog and following her journey throughout her career, the link will be in the description. So make sure you go ahead and follow that. And we were talking about all of the different blog posts that you're writing that you have in mind.
Mhm.
What are some of the topics that people can learn more through your blog?
Yeah, I think at the beginning you'll see my MBA posts of that I want to really get into VC, and my ideas about a good venture capital company. And then you see the transition to blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
I compare different blockchains, Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, for example. I try to explain what even is blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
I try to then do a little bit more, deep dive. So NFTs, how to get involved in NFTs, what are NFTs, what are NFT example projects to look into. There's always also links to other resources, that you can look at that are from players that have been in the field much longer than I have. Metaverse, what is the metaverse? Where is the metaverse going? In my opinion, but also obviously based on research, and then also sustainability, so Bitcoin and ESG, and is that a very can Bitcoin be sustainable or not? And providing a bit of an insight there, and also an expert opinion on that field. So I think, yeah, I'm trying to do a variety of different topics. A little bit of my blog is also about my choices and my career path, and how I went from, an excited MBA student to a kind of a blockchain enthusiast to then a VC blockchain enthusiast in the end.
I love that. So we can track your journey. We can see how that progress helped. And honestly, to an extent, get into your head throughout
Yeah.
those different transformative stages of your life. I love that. Mona, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise, your insights, and your story and your advice, which was so actionable. I'm sure it will resonate. Your journey will resonate with so many people out there. And thank you for being vulnerable. It is not easy to change careers, but it is absolutely possible. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. And yeah, hopefully this says any of this resonates with anyone and can be helpful, then yeah, that's great.
Mona, thank you so much for your insights and your actionable advice on how to make that career transition, because it is very scary, especially when you don't have any background in the field. However, I think that you've done so masterfully. You've done it yourself, and I'm sure you're opening doors for so many people who have watched this video, who have listened to this episode, and I thank you. I'm so grateful for your wisdom, for the wisdom that you've shared with us, and for the wisdom that you continue sharing on your blog. If you're interested to learn more about Mona's journey and learn more about crypto from Mona's explanations, I will leave a link to it in the description below. So go ahead and read it and subscribe to Mona's blog. Let me know what you thought about our conversation, Mona's experience, and all of the different questions that we have discussed with Mona in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or by shouting out on social media and tagging us in your shout out. You can find us as Stereotype Breakers or on most platform, or Stereotype Breakers on Twitter. We can also be friends on those social platforms, so don't forget to subscribe there, and also subscribe to this podcast on the podcasting platform of your choice and YouTube. Let's be friends everywhere. Might as well, right? Like this episode if you've enjoyed it, and share with a friend who is thinking about changing careers and doesn't know where to start, or might have doubts about their age potentially, because I know it is a touchy subject for a lot of us. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful time of the day you're currently experiencing. Bye.